time for, we hope this will be a broadcast. We're just gonna see. I'm gonna go ahead and share to Twitter. Woo! Yeah, we're gonna see how this goes. Okay, so there's that, and I'm also gonna just do Twitch also, so that we're simulcasting, and I'm gonna see if I can actually just get both up here on the monitor. Since the monitor is gigantic, maybe I can keep track of both chat logs. And let's go to view page, view and watch page. Alright, so there's that. Let's go to Twitch as well. We'll go Twitch. And let's just see what we can get. I forget if there's a way to... I think there is a way to like split these off. If I pull this... There we go. So now I'm watching... Let's see how this this older computer is able to deal with this. So I'm gonna blow that up to half the screen. Okay. Hey, what's up, Cameron? Yeah, it's on Twitch too, so I want to see what would happen if I have both Twitch and YouTube up at the same time. We'll just see what we got. Okay. So anyway, we're gonna get going. It looks like we're all right. I've got really odd stuff to do tonight, so thankfully it's not going to be that exciting from a modeling standpoint. But I'm working on the next part of the D&D commission. So now I have I have this character here. This is a dwarf, another dwarf player character, and the client has instructed me that the metal models are going to be PCs, player characters, and that all the Reaper Bones stuff is going to be NPCs or non-player characters. Okay, so I have another 8 models to do, but really only one of them is a character. Now, from a painting perspective, that really doesn't change my approach that much, because I'm still going to paint them to this the one and only standard that I paint to. The only difference is I might, on these NPCs, I might not be as careful with some of the detail. Alright, so far so good. Good. Yeah, if you end up staying on here, that's fine. I'll cut the Twitch feed off if no one's watching on Twitch. I mean, I could tweet out that I'm on Twitch, but I think it's the same group of people that watch the YouTube as the Twitch. So as long as that group of people sees it show up on their Twitter or whatever, then I should be alright. Alright, so I do have, so for this Reaper Bones, I've got a bunch of elf miniatures, which is cool, because he actually wants me to paint them as drow elves, so I'm gonna call them drow elves. I know people call them drow. It just sounds weird to me. Drow sounds like a weird. We've always called them drow, and maybe that's wrong, but that's what we were calling them back in the day, and it just sounds better to me. So, and then then we got some models like this, which is really cool. This is like the village mobster, and I've always wanted to paint a village mob. I mean, I only get to paint one guy, one member of the village mob, but I'm pretty happy about that. The old pitchfork and torch thing here. This reminds me of basically anybody who has strong feelings towards one of the candidates in the presidential election. This is what you look like to me, okay? If you have taken like a hardline stance on one of the candidates, this is exactly how I imagine you, because you don't make sense to me. You don't. I'm sorry, because a lot of my friends have taken hardline stances for a candidate. Now, don't get me wrong. If you take a hardline stance against a particular candidate, I think you're in the majority of people. And I think, you know, I can actually sympathize with a lot of those positions. Like, hey, I really, really hate this candidate that much. But if you take a position for one of these candidates, I don't know. I don't know what to tell you, man. You look like this. You look like this guy to me, okay? You look like that guy to me. Like, what's your deal? And then, you know, and then there's this guy here. This guy's really cool. He's like if I can ever get him to focus. I know Bones is tough because, just because it's white and you can't really tell. I caved earlier and bought some Reaper Minis today. Yeah, Reaper Minis are fantastic. I love them. You know, if I had the kind of bandwidth like I used to, where I could just buy stuff, go to the store, buy stuff. Oh, I had this was back when I had disposable income as well. What's that? I don't know what that is anymore. You know, once I got kids and a mortgage now. You know, I guess you could call me a full-fledged adult at this point. So now that I'm going for kid number 2, we'll see if my prediction was that my wife would go into labor late tonight. Still might happen. Still might happen. She went to go see the doctor. Doctor checked her out. She looked good. She looked fine, but not in labor yet. So, and once again, you know, that's just us getting anxious. Her due date is Thursday. But you know, we're just getting anxious. We want to. She's really tired of being pregnant, and I want to meet this kid already. You know. So scary, man. I don't know. I don't think I was this scared when we had the first kid, because I think I was too stupid to really understand like how much your life changes. Like, I was way too stupid, and you know, you're a little. I was really excited actually when we had our first son, and a little bit scared. But I think this time I know a lot more about what to expect, and that knowledge actually scares me more than before I had my first kid. And some people say, oh no, once you have your first one, you get it, you understand it. But now it's like, well, wait a minute, we're just barely starting to figure out one kid. Now we're gonna throw another one in this mix, and you know, we're gonna start the whole process over. Teeny little diapers and stress over, you know, how fragile newborn babies are. But whatever. I'm super excited about it. Don't let my rambling dissuade you. So, anyways, this guy here, it's a really cool, like, valet guy. Look at all his equipment. Isn't he awesome? This guy's great. He needs the coconuts, and this guy is fantastic. He's gonna be interesting to paint just because there's so much crap on him. This is the guy that's like, oh, you better just vote for one of the two parties. This guy here. And this guy's like, I really love this candidate. They're the best person. We're gonna change history. Like this guy, I don't even know that guy. Like, what the hell is going on with that guy? Then you get this cool knight guy. This guy's cool. He should come off the base pretty quick here. So yeah, I am clipping these off their bases and just making life a little harder for myself. And the reason why I'm doing that is because I just hate these tab bases. It's just not... Basing is, to me, honestly, it's one of the ways you can get away with a less than awesome paint job, is to have a reasonable basing scheme. You know, if you bases and faces is the old adage, right? If you can paint the model's face and do a good job there, and you know, and you have a reasonably good basing scheme, your model's going to look good. Okay, I'm not saying it's going to win competitions, but it's a good adage if you paint to play the way I do. If you paint with the understanding that, hey, I need to get these on the board, I want them to look good, but I'm not gonna, you know, I'm not gonna put 200 hours in a mini and try to win contests with it. I just want to get it to a point where I can, you know, I can play a game and enjoy my game. Then it's bases and faces, folks. That's what I'm a firm believer in that, and so, and I'll show you an example of that here in a second. Okay, so here's the, it's like a chaos knight. He's going to be the party's Upham. Yeah, so, yeah, whatever. I know, it's, the stupid election is making us all, like, political. And my wife and I were talking about it tonight. Like, I've somehow become much more political than I've ever been in my life. I mean, I'm a Gen Xer, man. Like, we prided ourselves on being totally apolitical and just being totally cynical on the whole election process. And I think it's because, you know, Xers grew up around, oh, okay, Clinton's the standard, and then we had to, so we had 8 years of Clinton and 8 years of G-Dub, and you know, it just, everything was just, it was just so standard within the two parties, and really, I wanted a viable third party. I actually voted Perot. It was the very first person I voted. But anyway, let's see. Okay, what model should I paint? I don't know, man. You're okay. So Trump says China, Clinton coughs. That was pretty. Yeah, I would say that's fairly accurate as to what the debates were. I did actually stop and watch the debates. My wife wanted to watch them. She has her own personal stake in the election on a number of fronts, not just the presidential election, but you know, she feels pretty strongly about, you know, doing the right thing in this particular election. And in fact, like, we had our own, like, disagreements and debates about who we're voting for and all that stuff. And you know, I'll be honest with you guys, we didn't agree. We still don't agree, but we at least can do that in a respectful manner, and you know, respect the other person's right to vote according to their convictions, right? So, you know, it's fine. That's pretty. I think that's pretty admirable considering today's climate. You can't do that. Like, you can't do that with most people. And you know, I wouldn't be surprised if people are. I know some, like, some long-term relationships are splitting up over this stupid election. But I mean, I bet you there's some, like, divorce papers filed and all this stuff over the election. That's some scary shit, dude. But it's really upsetting too. Like, it's really upsetting that people have to take it that far. You know, people are going to disagree. I tell people that you know, you vote. I tend to believe that you vote for your way of life, and you vote for the candidate that you think is going to do their best to protect or ensure your way of life. That sounds kind of weird coming from a married couple with a split vote. But I think what is going on is that we are both voting for people that we think will protect our way of life. It's just that there are specifics within that, the specific priorities that we have that actually causes our votes to diverge. So, yeah, I don't know. I do think that's ultimately that's what people vote for. They vote for whoever they feel is going to best protect their way of life. So, and you know, frankly, I think we both agree that that these candidates are awful. That all the candidates are awful. I mean, I know people post memes about Hector Elizondo Mountain Dew Camacho running for president, and I'm like, God, if only. Like, and being serious too, like, if only you know, someone with that amount of balls, with that amount of leadership skills was running. You know, I was like half tempted to write a whole like essay on why I think that guy, Hector Mountain Dew Elizondo Camacho, I don't think that's the exact order of his name, but basically the president in Idiocracy, why he is head and shoulders above anyone currently running today in terms of actual leadership. Like, I could write that. Like, I could easily defend that. And it's both sad and funny that I can say, oh yeah, this fictional character, this fictional representation of what's supposed to be a dystopian ruler is still better than the major party candidates that we have in front of us. I think that's the sad statement. I think that's what makes this really upsetting. Hey, what's up, Tori? Topped in on the Twitch side. 9 Ninjas and Bacon. Yeah, Idiocracy is actually... Yeah, it is, because it's... Dude, when I first saw Idiocracy, I non-jokingly told people, no, dude, this is prophetic. Like, this is frighteningly accurate. And now people are on the internet going, oh yeah, Idiocracy was right. I'm like, dude, you didn't even know what the fuck this movie was when you know, no one really paid much attention to the movie, and I thought that the movie was absolutely brilliant. The opening scene where they show kind of human microevolution from the smart quote unquote smart couples couldn't have kids, and then you have the stupid people that are just, you know, breeding everywhere, and it has that like family tree exploding. Like, it's really kind of terrifying and true. I mean, isn't it? It's true. It's you would be really intellectually dishonest if you didn't see that that's the case, that the movers and shakers, the people that are productive members of the Western secular world, cannot compete with the other cultures of the world with regards to breeding. And if you really wanted to talk about what are the real threats, 2 topics I don't talk about is religion and politics. I'm here to watch you tear down the Reaper Bones minis. Yeah, sorry, Tori. I'm just gonna talk. I don't care. So yeah, sorry, not sorry. I'm gonna talk about it. But anyway, if you really want to know, in my opinion, what the real threat to Western secular culture is, it's not it's not war. It's not war. It's not violence. That stuff is going to happen. Ultimately, the West is going to be bred out. I firmly believe that. I firmly believe the West, and when I mean the West, I'm talking about Europe, United States, and Australia, is that our birth rates are just not going to be able to keep up with, with these foreign influences that are, they're repopulating the world at a much faster rate. And I remember being in middle school and reading in my, social science class that, they predicted that half of the world's population would be from South America or Latin America by the year 2000. I don't know if that's true or not. I don't think it is, actually, but it's pretty damn close. It's not, and it really not. There's three big players here in the population game. It's Central and South America is one, and that's the one that we knew about, and China. We knew China was a big power, but China has regulated their own birth rates, so they're still big. They're a huge player for a number of reasons, but birth rate is becoming a decreasing issue for them. And then then you've got the Middle East, North Africa, and the birth rates that are coming from that part of the world. So it's idiocracy is really eerily accurate. That that's going to be the problem. And when you have this large population of folks that trying to be diplomatic here, but a large population of folks that aren't really forging ahead in terms of world progress. They're more, these are people that are they're average people. They're having families, having kids, and they're spreading their cultures and ideologies in the more in a more traditional sense by having larger families and by passing those traditions on through those families and affecting cultures in that manner. Let me toss this out, and then we'll start to pin these onto some bases here, and then I'll expand on my ramble thought here. So let's get these. So I stamped a bunch of these. Then they look terrible on camera, I know. These are 25 mil, basically cobblestone bases that I stamped. They look awful. They don't look great. And truth be told, I stamped these in a rush, just kind of knocked them out real quick. These are going to do fine though, because once they're painted, the whole thing is going to look kind of like grungy rock, so no biggie. Why don't you go, the other thing I'll show you while I'm here, let's look at the Wild in the Streets stuff, okay? So this is they're just about done, Wild in the Streets, and if I could get this to focus, that would be even better, right? Maybe I can, if I did that. There we go. So you can see a lot of characters in the Wild in the Streets thing. I painted in the herringbone bases, and so you've got, let me arrange them by their gangs here. So you got the goth girls here. Oops, I'm gonna have to back this up a little bit. So those three are the goth girls. So I don't know, I might have gone a little too vibrant with their colors. They actually probably look like, I don't know, more like weird flapper girls, you know, almost. Can't even get that to focus. There we go. So there's those girls. Then you got 2 Krusties here. The other Krusty is was actually painted as part of the original stuff I did. And then you've got here, these 3 are this is the skinhead crew right there. And then the 3 back here are the straight edge guys. So you got straight edge. Oops, their leader is this guy. Straight edge are these guys back here. Skinheads, really cool. Krusty's back here, and then you got the goths here. So these, you know, they're not 100% done. You can see Don doesn't have anything on his towel yet. The Krusties don't have the freehand on the backs of their jackets yet, but they're, I mean, that's playable at this point. They're playable. I'm gonna have to seal them all, and then add them. So I think that's 1, 2, 3, 4 gangs plus the plus I have the murder cult girls. I have murder cult and death. Some other, I forget the other ones. I have 2 other gangs. I think I have total. I think I have 6 gangs for Wild in the Streets, which is actually kind of cool. 6-player game of Wild in the Streets is actually pretty fun. It's more like a party game, so it's a lot more social than strategic. So it's like if you have 6 people that are like, hey, I don't really, you know, I'm not here to play Guild Ball or score a caster kill or anything like heavy tactical like that. I just want to run up some skinheads on your murder cult girls and punch them in the face, that type of thing. Then that's going to be just fine. So, okay, so this is the only piece of metal tonight is this dude. So we're gonna put a pin in his foot. I totally hear you, Tori, about not wanting to talk politics stuff. It's been getting harder for me not to talk about stuff. And the one thing I would assure you of, though, is I don't shill for a particular candidate. I have who I'm going to vote for, but I'm not going to tell you who it is because it doesn't matter. Suffice it to say, just like most people, I'm very, very disappointed in our field of candidates, and I also think that there are some significant flaws in the current American electorate process. So, but and frankly, this is just a shit show. This is embarrassing. Like I can't believe how juvenile and how infantile this election has been. So there's that, right? The other thing I'd point out too is that it's one of the things I'm most disgusted in particular, this election season has been the media, the press, and it's a long time coming for me. I've always sort of distrusted most of the media and press surrounding me, and I've always been very skeptical of how things are portrayed to the mainstream society, and I'm afraid that a lot of my like tinfoil stuff, a lot of that stuff for me, I feel has been confirmed by the election season and by watching how media outlets treat one candidate or another candidate, or not just the media outlets, but even celebrities, and just that's the part that gets disgusting. Is that is this sort of horrible bias that's going on, and then at the macro level, right? At the I'm a celebrity, you trust me, I'm voting this way. If you don't vote this way, you're a piece of garbage, type of thing, And the problem I have with that, now I don't have a problem with celebrities supporting their candidate or whatever. The problem I have with it is this new trend of shaming people or denigrating people based on their choices. That's the problem I have. The outrageous behavior, that whole attitude of, if you don't do this, my choice is morally superior to yours, and if you don't follow me, if you don't agree with me, then clearly you're a disgusting human being, and I'm not going to associate with you. That's the part that really, really bothers me about this current election climate, is that it is very morally exclusive. And for the people especially from the people that came out of my generation, right? The 90s, the people that grew up in the 80s and the 90s, where, we came through the Cold War. We remember, having to look at the world, or being forced to look at the world in black and white, like, America, good guys, communism, bad guys, and if you were suspected of being a communist, well, you're a bad guy, and if you vote against Reagan, you're a bad guy. There was no, and people berated each other over that. If you don't follow this religion, you're a bad person, right? And so my generation, the Xers, we grew up in that very conservative, very restrictive environment, and a lot of us, most of us, at the time rebelled against it and said, you know what? We're not just, you can't just group people up like that. You can't just say, these people are good, these people are bad, these people are moral, these people are immoral. Like, you can't do that. You can't do that on the basis of religion. You can't do it on the basis of color. You can't do it on the basis of income, and you can't do it on the basis of political party. And so the Gen Xers, our generation, came out of that. We came out of that era really championing individual rights and individual freedoms. I think that's really where, even though libertarianism was defined well before that, it really started to take on a little bit more of a solid identity, because skepticism came into vogue. And I think that's a huge thing. Being skeptical of stuff that everyone is telling you that you need to trust, that you need to believe in, you need to follow. We said, well, no, let's take a critical look at stuff, and let's try to tear it apart, and let's see if it can withstand that. And so it was a combination of that, but in particular, individuality, and this whole idea of, when I look at you, and I'm going to say it because it's super, super corny, super crappy. When I look at you, I don't see your skin color. When I look at you, I don't see your disability, or I don't see your, what the rest of the world sees in you. I see you, the person, and for us, it's like, well, I want to be defined by what I'm doing, who I am, not a demographic, and we looked at it that way. And so it's like a lot of people from my generation became fiercely independent because of the fact that, like, we took such an individualistic stance about things. That's not to say it's not without its downsides, because it is. There's some serious downsides to that as well. But that's a stance that is widely disdained today. Because today, it's not, nothing is your fault anymore. You know, there's two things going on, really. And this all, again, this happened within the 90s at the same time that the older folks, or the people coming into their own, really started to establish themselves as individuals and champion their right to be individuals and to be skeptical about the world around them. You know, the first atheist community started to form up around this time. But then, you know, on the other side, with the youth, with the kids, there was all this stuff going on around the lack of self-esteem, right? Self-help. Self-help was the biggest. This is a side effect of individuality. So now we're starting to talk a little bit about here's a crappy thing that happened while my generation was coming into its own. And the Xers, we really are kind of the unknown generation at this point. We don't grab headlines anymore. No one gives a shit about Xers anymore because we never outgrew the boomers. You know, right? The boomers were the largest part of society forever and ever and ever, and then only recently has the millennials caught up to them in terms of raw number. But I'm an Xer. I'm that generation that was like fit in between, and here's what we did. So we're definitely kind of like a transitory thing. While we were going so heavily individual, then you had the self-esteem movement, which I think was an incredibly detrimental movement, because it was like, oh, these kids have a lack of self-esteem, or these minorities have a lack of self-esteem. What we need to do is we need to inject self-esteem in people. We need to give out participation awards. We need to make everybody feel special. You are a special, unique snowflake. You are. And I know people apply that to the millennials, but we invented that. Like that came from the Xers. Like that whole thing started with us. We were the ones giving participation medals to our kids who are the millennials, because the whole thing was, oh, it's a lack of self-esteem. And you know what? It's not your fault. That's the other part of the lack of self-esteem. It's not your fault, right? So we tell people they don't have self-esteem. Then we tell people it's not their fault. It's the system, right? It's the system around them. When they make mistakes, it's not your fault. You can't fail. You can't fail because you're a good person. You're a special person, and we're gonna make sure you don't fail. No child left behind. We're not gonna let anybody fail, no matter who they are, what their disability is, what their setbacks are, or even, you know, what their attitude is, because when you and here the big distinction I make is, it was never about self-esteem. It was never about self-esteem. You want to if you want to empower people rather than entitle them, then you have to teach them self-respect. It's a very different thing. Self-respect is a very different thing. In fact, it's most of the time it's the exact opposite of self-esteem. Let me explain. So self-respect isn't about getting a participation medal. It's about earning an actual place. And when you empower people to succeed, you have to allow them to fail. That's the part that just constantly gets forgotten or thrown out the window or ignored, is that what we did with the self-esteem movement was we took away the possibility of failure. And when you do that, you take away the possibility to succeed as well. So now what you've honestly done is you've disempowered the person, and you told them that everything that they do isn't actually their fault. It's actually, you know, there's no personal accountability. It's the system. The system has failed you. The system is what's wrong. Let's attack the system. And at that point, when you start looking at the world around you and the people around you as systems, now you're in that rut again. Now you're dividing people into groups. You're assigning those groups, and you're taking control of people. You're overreaching. You're stepping into their choice space, and you're making choices for them, and you're making assumptions about them and their life. And if that, that's where this modern PC movement is now. You have to add in all of these ideas to see this is where we get. It's the fact that people aren't allowed to earn anything anymore because they're not allowed to fail anymore. And instead of looking at you as an individual, and the people that do attempt to earn things, the people that do, climb up the meritocracy, those people are derided. Those people, oh well, you're privileged. You anytime you disrupt the narrative of, oh, here are the people that are oppressing these people, and that's it. That's all you're allowed to believe. These people oppress these people. This class oppresses this class. This oppresses this. And anytime anything flies in the face of that, well, they're privileged. Well, it's they bought into this system, and those poor suckers think that they earned something when actually they didn't. Like, it's a very, very denigrating attitude. These are some very, very dark, these are some dark thinking processes as far as I'm concerned. And so that's the culture now. And I'm not talking about left or right or Republican or Democrat. Here's what, to me, this is what I see when I'm looking around. You have a bunch of people that are disempowered, and you have a political system that basically is telling the people from the left and the right, what's going to solve all your problems? Me. More government. Give me more power. Give me more control of your life, and I'll make it better for you. Okay? It's not your fault. You're just the victim. You didn't have a chance. Any way you screw up, it's not your fault. It's, let me fix it. Let me give me your freedom, and I'll fix it for you. And with a disempowered, fully entitled generation of people that don't like to think, that don't like to keep a critical mind about things, it's becoming easier and easier and easier to keep people trapped. And also, see, geez, what the crap happened to me? Anyway, and then at the same time, you have a media that becomes a tool, is this overreach. You have media, both the wider traditional media and social media, that espouses this idea that and they run their narrative. And I know it sounds really, really crappy. I hate talking about this kind of stuff, but I mean, you got it, man. You got it, because you have to. That's all. That's all you have to know. If anything, if you've learned anything from this election season, hopefully you learned that the media is not to be trusted. Hopefully you learned that. Hopefully you learned that the media is painfully biased. It's painfully cronyistic. It's painfully, yeah. You're dozing off. Sorry, dude. Have a good one. Yeah, I got into like a crazy ramble there. But, whatever. That's how I feel. You don't like it? Fine. It's okay. Doesn't bother me. But that's how I feel. That's just the opinion of an old guy slapping miniatures together. Right? And so, whatever. This is me, the old guy, saying, yeah, it's a crock of shit. Like, I mean, obviously you should still vote, but I don't take the same dogma to it the way other people do. You should vote. You should vote. If you choose not to vote, that's saying as much as voting in some cases. But you should vote. I think you should, but I'm not going to, you know, I don't like this whole, I'm going to shame you for not voting. That's stupid. You have a say. You tell people you have a say. They say, I don't want my say. I'm not going to use it. You don't get to go, oh, well, you don't have a choice. You have to say something. I remember I pissed off a friend of mine. Oh, are you going to do War Boss Taste Spookytoberfest this year? I don't know, man. I'm going to have a new kid. I'm hoping to continue painting. Thank you for changing the subject, by the way. I genuinely appreciate that. I was getting, yeah. Yeah, I don't know. New kid and more responsibilities at home. I want to continue to paint. I just don't know what I can commit to yet. So I'm going to say tentatively, yeah, I probably will. But, you know, it might only be a couple of pieces. It might only be like, you know, 12 pieces or something. But yeah, I'd be down to do that. It sounds like fun. Alright, so now let's go ahead and start sticking these guys on. And I'm telling you, this stuff looks bad. It looks bad. But once it's painted, I think it'll look fine. Right now, we're just still kind of shocked that this kid hasn't come yet. You guys heard me predict it like several times on these feeds that I think that the kid is coming late tonight. I still believe that. Even though I don't think that my wife has dropped yet. You know. So if the baby hasn't dropped yet, that means that we're not approaching labor just yet. Once again, it could still happen though. So what else is going on? Well, it doesn't look like I'm going to be doing Extra Life this year. I don't have the runway for it. I'm going to do, actually, that's not entirely true. I'm probably going to do a small local event, but I don't know how much fundraising I'm going to do. Like, I'm definitely not going to be able to do like the big extravaganzas like I did in the past. And, you know, thanks to you guys, we did actually, the past couple years on this channel, we did raise quite a bit of money for Extra Life and for our local children's hospital. In this case, it's Chalk Children's Hospital. So I'm, you know, deeply grateful for that. If I do it again this year, I think I have to keep it real simple. And I am committed to do a paint day with at Comic Quest November 5th. So we'll do that. That's also the same day as Extra Life, but I don't know how much fundraising I'll do prior to that. Like, I don't even think I'll be lucky to break a couple $100 on the fundraising front. And with that kind of being the realistic goal for me, I don't really see a point in contacting Ninja Division and putting them out and saying, oh, yeah, I want to give away more of your stuff for Extra Life. Granted, I know they would do it for me in a heartbeat, but I don't think that's fair. I don't think it's fair to put them on the spot like that. It's there's actually this simulcast is pretty good now. we don't have a whole lot of live viewers right now, so maybe that's part of it, but it seems to be doing okay. Okay, put these guys on, and then yeah, maybe we'll break out the airbrush, do a little priming, because we still have a bit of time here. My son is actually asleep right now, so that's good. He went a few nights there where he just was not going to sleep, but we kind of ran him ragged today. My wife is now home from work, so she can monitor his napping habits and all that stuff better now. And so it looks like he's on a decent schedule. Now that kid doesn't even know what's about to happen. We're looking at his last few days here of being an only child. Now, for me, I never knew what it was like to be an only child. I was the youngest of 5, so I had no idea what that's like. My wife was an only child. She knows exactly what it's like. I think for her, though, I think she's sadly really only got the bad parts of being an only child. You know, didn't get what I perceive to be the good parts of being an only child, you know, which is like the undivided attention of your parents and not having to share your stuff. That's what people think. Like, when you're an only child, that's the cool stuff that you get. But, you know, from her sharing experiences with me, I now know that being an only child all the way through adulthood means that you basically have to bear the entire brunt of your parents' mistakes. You know? Let me explain. If you were the oldest child, well, anytime you're the first child, right? You're kind of you're vulnerable to the rookie errors that your parents are going to make. You're vulnerable to, instances where they're not the best parents. Instances where they don't understand what to do. First time, a parent has an emergency with their child. I remember this. First time I had an emergency with my son. Like, that's fucking terrifying. That's the scariest thing. By far, scariest thing in my entire life is worrying over my kids. And in that first one, it's like you're gonna have a heart attack. Like, you may just, I thought I might just keel over and die when when my kid, when my son, when he was a newborn, he was having problems breastfeeding, and it got really bad, and he was not getting the kind of nutrients he should have gotten. And we were naive, we listened to let me put this drill away for a minute. Yeah, like my wife and I, we were new parents. We sponged everything up. We read books, we did classes, And we believed every word out of the medical staff's mouth, every word out of the nurse's mouth, and in particular, the breastfeeding nurse. Right? We had breastfeeding specialists come in because it's a fairly common thing. Kids don't know, newborns will have problems breastfeeding. They'll have problems latching onto their mother, that whole thing. So that's why they have a breastfeeding specialist. Well, the particular breastfeeding specialist we had gave us some horrible advice. Horrible advice. And we followed that advice for a couple of days. And it just wasn't helping. It wasn't getting my son the nutrition he needed. And he got really lethargic, and his energy just fell to nothing, and we were terrified. And we panicked, and ended up calling specialists. We called another nurse. We took the kid. We wanted to take the kid back into like the ER. It was horrible. It was terrifying, scary. And it wasn't until my wife and I agreed, like, basically, F this nurse. Let's just get food in this kid, no matter how we get food in the kid. And we put we gave him the bottle, and he got food, and he passed out, which got even scarier, because it was like he passed out, but he passed out because he had finally was able to eat so much. And then when he was feeling better, we decided to disobey that nurse again and try new strategies in order to get him to breastfeed. And guess what? Those strategies worked fantastically, and we never had a problem again. We went to the pediatrician, and the pediatrician said, "Oh, that nurse is completely wrong. Feed your kid, get food in him. That's the priority. Don't worry about how. You don't have to be a snob about a particular technique like this lady was." And it's upsetting to think about that. Like, I hope that this lady is out there like being a Nazi about stuff, and I'm terrified that she's handing out really, really awful advice to new parents out there, and possibly harming people. So that's a scary thing. But anyway, I know I'm kind of all over the map tonight, but hell, this is what we're talking about. We're just trying to get some stuff done. But this is what happens, and we don't. Nobody's on to throw some cool questions at me. Thank you for the Spookytoberfest question, Tori. But if I don't have enough questions, then I fill in the blanks. And my blanks they're not always the most interesting blanks. And sometimes they're just really, really rambly. So all I'm doing right now is I'm giving these a few minutes to dry. And let's get some priming done. Let's do that for the rest of the show, really. So we're going to get some priming done. And honestly, I think the best way to do this is just to do our... we're going to do a couple of different priming and pre-shading stuff. So I got my gray primer up there, right? So I need that. In fact, I'm going to do this first, let it dry, and then while they're drying, we're going to pick our color schemes. Get a pair of gloves. Now, why do I wear gloves? Like, it's not like, I mean, I'm at home. I could easily get up and walk over to the sink and wash my hands off, right? Why would I wear gloves when I'm priming, when I'm doing my airbrushing? The reason why I do that is actually not to protect my hands as much as it is to protect the miniatures, okay? So when you're priming and your hands are oily, your hands are, especially when they get hot, You're going to have oil on them. You're going to have dirt on them. That's going to pull the primer off. It's going to leave your fingerprints on the models, and then it's going to, it'll screw up the final look of your model. So throw gloves on. I'm going to clean the needle here. What are you using for primer? I am using Vallejo gray primer. The Vallejo, basically their PVA gray primer. An issue with bones still feeling sticky months later. Oh, I believe it. I mean, it's a soft plastic, and if you're using, if you use like a solvent-based primer, you may have some issues with drying. Totally see that. Even this PVA, if I put it on too thick, it'll bounce off the models and it'll repel a little bit. So, so when you're priming bones, it's weird because they tell you, oh, you don't have to prime bones. They're pre-primed. You can paint over that surface. From a completely technical standpoint, yes, you could, but it's not the best painting surface. Okay, we'll put it that way. I still think that you will want to prime the models. I mean, it's soft plastic. There's only so much it can do in terms of being able to accept paint. I'll try this stuff you're using. Yeah. I like this Vallejo gray primer. The white primer is pretty good. And I've had fair success with that. The Vallejo black primer has been very spotty. Black primer bounces off a lot of stuff. I noticed that. It does not stick in the way as well as the white primer. And the gray primer, to me, gives you better adhesion, and it actually it gives you a good combination of what you might get from a white or a black primer. Alright, let's make sure. Thanks for tuning into the show, Eric, by the way. If you have any questions or anything, I know you just asked me one, but if you have any questions at all, feel free to ask. So we're just going to give this some, we're going to prime these tonight, and then probably do some pre-shading on them too. Okay. Alright, so for the Reaper bones, the key is, like I said, if you lay the primer on too thick, the coat on too thick, it's going to bounce off, or it'll run, it'll drip. So what you really want to do is get a very thin coat on, just like that. This is the metal model, so it's actually going to take the primer a lot better. So get a thin coat like that, but don't stop there. I mean, to the point where it shouldn't look like I really put any primer on the models. The only way you should be able to tell that I have primer on these models is that they're gonna be a little dull looking. Ooh, geez. Look at that. That's a mess right there. See that? See that big gap with his foot? I'm gonna have to fill that. What a mess. Hold on. Well, let me fix that in a minute. Let's get some more of these done. So again, be sure that you keep your airbrush moving and you put a thin coat down. Uh-oh, Did I clog up already? Looks like I did. Whoa. Getting some spitting on my airbrush. It's not good. Ooh, went a little too heavy there. This guy is kind of standing on the base funny. That model will be by far the easiest one to paint. This one here is going to be the hardest one. The valet. Just because of all his crap. He's like my favorite guy. The valet. Again, we're not trying to get full coverage this first coat. We just want to get enough on there to kind of get a thin layer on. Oops. In here. Alright, so I got this like crappy base there. I'm gonna just throw a little bit of plastic putty behind the foot. Whoa, that was way too much. Just to fill in the gap. So I'm gonna smear that in there and then wipe off the excess. It looks like when I chopped the foot off, I took off a little bit more than I should have. Okay. And I think this guy here, he actually just needs I need to put a little dab of glue in there to get his foot all the way down. And then some of these guys are kind of weird looking in terms of their stance. So I'm gonna throw a dab of paint there. I mean a glue. Clean that up. We'll just hold that in place for a minute. Okay. Alright, so now let's do that again. I'm just going to go back and give everything another coat of primer. This time we are going to try to get the models covered. So okay, and let's just go down the line. Alright, so here we go. Still have a few more to go, so we'll just put in a little more gray. Seeing this is invaluable. Now I know I did way too thick. I will go back and try light and thin. Oh, great. Glad I was able to help. Yeah, first time I did an airbrush primer, I did that. And I was like, well, what's wrong with the primer? Because you can see it's like bubbling and repelling off the surface. That means you have too much on there. What's going on is the plastics have a little bit of a it's a really tight surface, right? And so it's just going to beat up against that really tight shiny surface when you have too much paint. But if you manage to get a thin layer down, you know, you can get just enough of a thin layer that'll bite down onto that surface. Then once that's, you know, reasonably dry, then you can come back in, a little bit of a clog here, then you can come back in and really apply a full wet coat. The other thing I'd point out though is for priming, you don't actually necessarily, well, you're not trying to hide, you're not trying to cover the model per se. It doesn't have to look like one total solid block of gray. You want enough on there such that when the paint goes on, it's got enough tooth to grab. Tooth is an interesting term. Painters talk about having enough tooth on your primer or your substrate or whatever. That refers to, you know, the fact that a primer will put a very, very fine texture over your surface. That's one of the ways in which primers work. Primer is a paint that when it goes on the surface, all the irregular pigments in the primer are going to stand up at different angles and different heights, and it's going to impart a really, really, you know, fine texture on the surface of the model, and it's your paint that wants to stick to that surface because it has the primed surface has more surface area, meaning it has these peaks and valleys and stuff, and so when your paint goes over it, it's going to fill into those peaks and valleys. It's going to grab the sides of the surface of the primer, and it's going to lock down. So you're not actually, when you're priming, the goal isn't necessarily to have this fully, like, evenly gray surface. So if you can still see a little bit of the yellow milliput on my models, that's not a big deal. Like, it's not. It doesn't mean that they're not ready to be painted. What do you use to strip the ones I messed up? What are they? Are they plastic, metal? I've never attempted to strip Reaper bones, so if they're this material, I'm not really sure what would work. Now, for me personally, I've used Simple Green. I've used a product called Absolutely Simply Awesome or something. And I think those will probably work on bones, but again, I should warn, I've never I've never actually tried to strip Reaper bones. So is the issue that you tried to put the primer on and it did it bubble off? Was it too thick? Did it bounce? Do you have, is that why you want to strip it? Or is this something you think you could, with a real light sand, could you get it back down to a usable state? I don't know. You obviously you're going to want to gauge that. But if you want to reprime it, yeah, I mean, honestly, if you had some areas that looked a little bubbly, you might be better off taking some super fine sandpaper, like 400 grit sandpaper. Oh, it's just sticky. Oh, that's tough, because that might be what you might be dealing with is a solvent in the primer that has interacted with the plasticizers in your plastic. It might have actually softened the plastic. So you would, oh wow, I see a big, I just borked something on one of my Wilderness Beats models. I'll have to fix that. So what you will have to do is try to figure out a way to remove the solvent, or what might actually be better is to use a PVA primer and try to lock it down. So you may not want to strip the model, is what I'm saying. You may, so if you have a solvent primer, if you put a solvent base down on it, that solvent base actually probably started to eat away a little bit at the model, and that softness is what's occurring. It's actually dissolving the model on a very fine scale, and so it's going to remain tacky like that because the model has never really rehardened as a result of that. So the strategy would be, we'll try to get the solvent to harden or to flash off, or cover it up with something that is going to harden. And that's probably where I would go. If it was sticky, what I would probably try to do is I would take the primer that I'm using and do exactly what I just did here. Do a real thin layer, and then come back and then do a full layer of primer, because this PVA primer it doesn't have any solvent in it. It's not. It's going to get in there, and then it should just dry down flat. You may actually have to do maybe a little bit more priming than what I just did to ensure that the soft, tacky plastic is coated. So I would actually do that in lieu of trying to strip, because even though, and Tori's saying simple green or totally awesome, even though I think those products would work in the situation where you have basically a weakened polymer or a weakened plastic, you're gonna want to coat that. So I hope that works. I think that's better than trying to strip it, though, because if you tried to strip it and it did actually leave your plastic in that weakened state, the plastic itself will probably still be tacky. Alright, so let's look at doing some pre-shading. So there's a few different ways you can do pre-shading. I'm going to do like a black-gray pre-shading. And on the player character, let's see if I can do, if I maybe want to do a different kind of pre-shade. That's a little too red. Actually, no. It's a druid. He's going to want green. It's fine. I can do that, and I'll do... Yeah. So I'm gonna treat these the same way for the most part. We're gonna do appreciate there, using really just 3 colors. So we're gonna use black, gray, and then I'm gonna use neutral gray and then white gray. So real simple, straightforward. Appreciate. And I'm gonna thin all of them with airbrush thinner, which is a godsend. I absolutely love this stuff for airbrushing. Oops. So we're not going to be doing any brush painting tonight. And that's just as well. So with model color tends to be thicker than game color. So I go at least 3:1 when I'm thinning model color. And stir. Yep, because the solvent, I'll try going over with this. Thanks again. I gave up my bones and a bunch didn't know what to do with. Yeah, that sucks. I've heard some stuff like that's not the first story I've heard about bones just staying sticky forever, and yeah, it usually has to do with using something solvent borne to prime it with. I had a similar situation with some board game pieces I was painting. I think they were the pieces from Ghost Story. Because Ghost Story is also really soft plastic. And I primed it with, I think it was P3. It was either P3 or Army Painter. And it made them super tacky. What I ended up having to do was breaking out the airbrush and doing exactly what I just told you, just repriming it. I've also had instances where it got really tacky and gummy like that, but then you just give it enough time and it'll dry. But if your stuff has been sitting around forever and it's still tacky, that's bad. By the way, if you know the proper pronunciation of drow, whether it's drow or drow, let me know. Heard it said both ways, and I'm trying to gain a consensus as to what it should actually be. Drow always made more sense to me. And I'm talking about drow elves. You might be looking at these going, why didn't I just go prime this black? Well, like I said, I had issues with the Vallejo black primer. So, to me, this is the safer bet. Start gray, let the gray bite in, and then go with your pre-shading. the other pronunciation is correct. Drow? I don't know. I just never called it drow. I've always called it dro. Drow just sounds weird to me. But if it's correct, it's correct. Kind of drives me crazy, you know, when I'm watching people's videos and they're mispronouncing something. Even if it's like, I know it shouldn't bother me that much, but can you imagine if I did like a full video on these and I'm like, we're gonna paint some drow elves, and you're watching this going, no, it's drow. Probably get some thumbs down. Woo! And sometimes handling these and like I'm almost like treating them like a hot potato. Like I should actually mount these on something, to be honest with you. But I don't know. I gotta work fast. I warned the guy too. I was like, yeah, be forewarned, I might be in the middle of painting this and then I might have to take some days off because of the baby. So I was hoping to get all my commission stuff done so that my table was clear when we had the baby. But I was like, you know what? I figured what would happen is if I really cleared my table, then we'd have the baby, and then it would be like late at night or whatever, and I'd be like, oh, I have time to paint a couple of things. And I wouldn't have a commission in front of me. Not the end of the world, because I still got other stuff to paint. But I'm like, you know, might as well be productive. If my wife isn't working during this time, and I need a little bit of extra cash, why not work on a commission? Let's see. Tori says the drow or Drew, or dark elves, generally evil, dark-skinned subrace of elves. So even Drew is more correct than Dro? Interesting. Just out of curiosity, either of you guys old enough to remember a little module called Vault of the Drow or Descent into the Depths of the Earth? The old AD&D modules that had to do with the Drow. Those are really cool. That's how old I am. We played those back in the day, and I remember, you know, the special rules for bucklers and repeating crossbows and stuff. And obviously Lolth, Demon Queen of Spiders. A good dwarf would say it that way just in spite of the race. Sure. Let's call him Dro then. Okay, so now they look like a bunch of black prime minis. Even though it's not actually black, this is black-gray. So I'm just shooting the rest of it. I don't have much paint left. Might as well just make sure I don't have any yeah, see? I hate that when you have like major gaps. Like you have to spray the models upside down to make sure you got everything. And finally this guy, let's get there. I think he wants this character to be a drow as well. Whereas this character kind of looks more like a Saracen fighter, like a holy warrior. I guess I could paint it like a drow. That's not that big a deal. Alright, give those a couple seconds. I bought it new in the 80s. Yeah, dude. So you're no youngin' either. Vault of the Drow, that was awesome. Descent into the Depths, they had the, I'm gonna screw up this name too. They had the Drow, and they had the Kuo-Tua. I don't even know how to say it. Kuo-Tua. How do you say that? The fish guys. Kuo-Tua. I don't know. Someone help me out here. They had the Kuo-Tua, and they had man catchers. How do you say that? Koto? That's just the rest of this evening. We don't know. It's just that. It's just me borking up these names. I mean, hell, if it's entertaining, I don't care. Hope you guys are trying to phonetically type these out. Koatoa. Yeah, that's how I read that. I don't know if it's Koatoa. Yeah, that's how I read it. But I think the didn't the spelling have a U in there? Like, wasn't it like K-U-O or something? I don't know. It's been a long time. Honestly, the main things I remember about those modules was the artwork on the cover and some of the special rules and equipment that those modules added. You know, I love the modules back in the like AD&D. Those were really awesome. Much later, we'd have the Dragonlance modules. Oh my god, loved that. Loved the Dragonlance modules. And then I also really liked White Plume Mountain, Land Beyond the Magic Mirror. You know, and then everyone knows the other ones, like the later ones, like Ravenloft, Temple of Elemental Evil, all that stuff. But I had really fond memories of that back in the day. Alright, so let's go on with some neutral gray. Oh man. Did not do a great job getting the dark color down on this guy. Not a big deal though, because believe it or not, the client wants this guy to be a druid. Which is weird, because right now he looks kind of like Santa Claus with a sword. Got the sack over his shoulder. Even his outfit looks quite a bit like Santa Claus. Okay. Magic Mirror is one of my favorites. I know, man. Just all the cool references in that module. That was a fun one. I remember some of the like side characters having some really crazy stats in that game. case you don't know what I'm doing, I'm just doing a zenithal prime with neutral gray. That's why I'm going so fast. It's so much easier to paint like blocks of NPCs and stuff with appreciating done. Right? Okay. All right. One more color to do. We just clear out this color. So yeah, this is typically the first night when I'm painting stuff. Build and prime, and then I include that. I include airbrush work and pre-shading as part of the prime process. Now what's cool about these is because these are drow elves. See how I pronounce that right? Because these are drow elves, and the skin is really dark, I'm not going to spend nearly as much time getting faces and skin done on these as I would other races. Fair skin races, I'll say. That takes a lot of time, typically. So that should be a reasonably good time saver. And the fact that drow, see, got it right again, the drow elves tend to wear really dark colors. So this pre-shading is, if I'm being honest here, is like half the battle. Alright, last color to go. We're going to go with white gray. This is a model air color, so I don't have to thin this as much. But it is a white, like an off-white color. So I'm going to have to mix this really well. Because these white colors tend to be high in the, like the powdery, the coarse pigments, and that stuff can clump up and clog an airbrush quick. Which are the drow? I think there's 5 total here. So the guy with the bow, this elf, this elf. Once I get this last shade on, I'll show you. It's basically those 4 are drow, I believe. All right, so final color going down. Whoa. A little too much came out on that guy. Okay. Whoa. Hate that when that happens. Really gotta watch the spitting on white. It's interesting, this guy definitely a high elf. Because of his the phoenix pattern on his armor. So I'm gonna have to get a little creative here. Like that's, by all accounts, that dude is a high elf. Cool, in game they're evil, domineering bitches. Yes, yes they are. I haven't played D&D for 26 years. We're supposed to be playing again. We're gonna use Chibi. We're gonna use our SDE and Ninja All-Star stuff to play. So that should give you an idea of the tone of the type of campaign we want to play, since it's been so long since I've played, and you know the other guys, I think Jose hasn't played in a while either. Then we want something a little lighter. All right, here's where it gets really interesting here. Because this guy is going to be this Chaos Knight. It's going to be a lot of steel. I'm going to kind of be a little specific with regards to where this final highlight's coming down. Now this model's already fun. Yeah. We'll see how it goes. Since I haven't played since AD&D, I don't even really know how any of it works anymore. The only thing I know is I know the basic lore from the old version of the game. I may come back and do an actual white on these guys. Just to really punch up that. No, it shouldn't. I think it's pretty good, actually. Right. Whoa. All right. Coming along pretty well. Let's finally do Dwarf Druid Santa Claus. I'm half tempted to paint this guy as Santa Claus. 5th edition pretty much runs the same. No Thaco though. I did reuse my AD&D stuff all the time. Cool. I want to play a Kenku character. So we're using Tengu from Ninja All-Stars. Alright. Okay. It's not bad. I'm gonna give these guys their final. And if these are way lighter than how they're going to end up, that's kind of the idea, is I can shade these back down. But as it stands, the appreciating should do a good job of giving me a little bit of a head start on the models. Almost done. Oh my god, that would be fun RP. Yeah. I loved Kenku since the original, you know, since they came out in that Fiend Folio or whatever. And the whole idea that you have these like bird-like people that really their communication is based off of their mimicry. I think that's really cool. I was going to work on the background lore for my character. So I'm imagining my character maybe like a almost like a thief proto-illusionist where he's got some access to like some cantrips, but you know he's a thief, which is, you know, it actually kind of plays into some of the natural strengths of Kenku. Okay, so let's clean this out, and then I'll show these off to the camera. And then it's getting pretty late. I think we're gonna wrap this up shortly here. So that's really as far as I wanted to go the first night anyway, was to write about this point, right, with the models appreciated. And again, because these are drow elves, I'm just going to be using a lot of shades and washes in the early going to exaggerate my shadows more, and then just really, really fine highlighting. But because everything is sort of a gray or a black, like think how far ahead I am right now just without having picked up a brush. Just what the pre-shading gets me. All right. Also, not to mention that the cobblestone stuff, the bases that they're on, are going to be that gray too, that like dungeon gray. And you can see, like, they looked crap. Let me show you this. See what kind of lighting we can get here. And let's try this. Let's try backlighting. Is that helping? I don't know if that helps or not. Yeah. I don't think that yellow light's helping. Yeah. Yeah. Come on, focus. There you go. See that? So that guy definitely high elf looking. In terms of his armor. Phoenix heraldry. It's actually a peacock in this case, but yeah. So you see, like, if I was not wearing gloves right now, I would have left fingerprints all over that model. It would have been a nightmare. Here's the, I'm calling him Santa. I have a hard time getting this thing to focus. Try to throw in the light a little bit further. But you can see he has like a sack on his back. And he's got a pelt of some sort over his shoulders. And then he's a dwarf, so he's gonna look like Santa. Santa with a blade. And he's supposed to be a druid. Here's village mob guy. Awesome. Love this guy. Love that sweet, sweet bowl cut on him. And the pitchfork and the torch. Or as I just abbreviated it to be porch. Pretty fun. This is the holy warrior, but I think this is gonna be, I think this is supposed to be a drow also. So, like for drow clothing, I could go red, I could go purple. There's a number of ways I can go. And then final drow, just your standard archer. Again, I don't think any of these guys were meant to be drow, but it's gonna actually the guy with this one here, this guy with the bastard blade, that guy, he's probably a drow. He's probably intentionally a drow. If you look at his armor and his weaponry. I don't know why he's standing on his tiptoes either. And then you got this guy here carrying all the equipment. Super fun. Yoth Malthal, this guy. This Igor character. And then you got this guy. The cool knight. Not a whole lot to do on this model. I'm actually, the plan is to take a very, very fine white dry brush to all the edges of the model, and then use an ink glaze to settle into those recesses and kind of give him a non-metallic look. And then from there, it's just, you know, painting a red or purple tabard on him. So anyway, that's it, dude. That's what we got for the night. Actually, while I'm here, let me touch up that error I had on that model. Giant chip of paint came off. That's what I get for not sealing these models when I had the chance. So if you guys have any final comments or anything before I close the stream, feel free to chime in. Hopefully the next time I turn on the stream, which could be a week, could be a couple weeks, could be even sooner, I'll have a new child in the life. So I'm really excited about that. Other than that, I want to thank everybody for watching. Thanks for tuning in, guys, and wish me luck. Yeah, really appreciate you guys tuning in, and great questions, good Good dialogue. That's going to do for this episode. Want to thank everybody for watching, and we will catch you on the next one.